Hi everybody, welcome back, and if this is your first time, welcome. I'm Max Haddad, and today we're going to talk about one of the worst things that can happen, your kid in jail. Now, the name of this video is To the Opposition, and that's because whenever I talk with somebody, hear from somebody, get yelled at by somebody who thinks that inmates are there for a reason, that prison is for punishment, that they earned what they got. Do the crime, do the time. Two things are usually true. Three things. One, they don't have any idea what prison is actually like. Two, they assume that if somebody's committing a crime, it's a moral choice. It has nothing to do with a compulsion they can't control. It has nothing to do with mental illness, or a blackout or anything. They're a bad person, or at least a good person that's turning to the dark side. And the last thing is they haven't ever thought about what they would like their loved ones to be, how they would like their loved ones to be treated, rather, if they committed a crime. Because if you live a long life, and I hope you all do, I hope I do, you might know somebody that ends up in jail or, God forbid, prison. Some of you already do. Some of you have already had kids in. Some of you have had girlfriends, boyfriends do time. You know, it affects people. But my point is, if you live a long life, someone you love completely, deeply, unconditionally, there's a really good chance they're going to have a problem. And I don't just mean drug addiction. I mean, somebody has diabetes and they go into insulin shock and they get into a car accident and they kill somebody. They're in legal trouble now. It doesn't matter if it was because of a medical condition. In fact, when you make the argument that do the crime, do the time, they're in there for a reason, addiction, schizophrenia, OCD, all of these things have been diagnosed the same way that physical conditions are diagnosed. There are symptoms, you make assessments. For God's sake, addiction is in the DSM. I think it stands for Diagnostic Scheduling Manual, that therapists and psychiatrists and even medical professionals look at to narrow down what someone might be suffering from. It's been decided. Mental illnesses, it's not a colloquialism. We're not just calling it an illness because we want your sympathy. People smarter than me with degrees a while ago even decided that there are illnesses of the mind that are so profound that it's not just oh, I'm sad, I am depressed. It's a brain problem. It's a real thing. And I know most of you already believe that, and I appreciate that. But the thing is, what I'm trying to say is, you don't get to believe it or not. It's a fact. It has nothing to do with belief. Red is a color. That's not up to me. 2 + 2 = 4. I don't get to believe that or not. It is. And addiction is an illness, a disease of the mind, and it is. And I don't get to believe that or not. I can choose to accept it and live and act as though it is a disease, or I can choose to be ignorant and act as though it isn't. So this video, being called To the Opposition, is not a plea to people who disagree with me. It's not supposed to be clickbaity. It's just me making a video hoping that for those of you that have never thought, what if my kid, my wife, my husband went to prison because of something they couldn't control, because you don't just end up in prison for things you can control. What if they did? How would I want them to be treated? Would you keep the opinion? Do the crime, do the time? They're there to be punished. Punish them. Their life should be hell. You might say, oh, my wife, she would never. She's a great person. None of my kids would do that. Well, we taught them right. They're strong. They care about people. My parents thought the same thing. And they were right. I care deeply about people. I am a good person. I'm not here to toot my own horn. I have always strived, help. I have always tried my best to take care of the people around me, especially the downtrodden, the people that couldn't take care of themselves. My ending up in prison had nothing to do with a moral choice. And believe me, I fought what I suffered from for 15 years before it got to the point where I was completely a victim of it and ended up doing something that landed me in prison. So whether your kids or your significant other or your friends or whatever are good people has nothing to do with it. Because if they were to be diagnosed with something, or not even diagnosed, but if they were to come down with something that intermittently or maybe perpetually can dictate their behavior, it doesn't matter how good they are, because there are spots, periods, times in their life when they are out of control. The decisions they make are not their own. And we can take the mental illness aspect out of it. We're going to talk about brain disease still, but let's throw out this sort of nebulous idea of somebody being sick, but only in the mind. Let's talk about the brain. Someone you love gets a brain tumor, and it makes them aggressive. Not all the time. They're still in there. They're still the person you love. You still see them watching birds in the morning, looking at their little bird book, trying to figure out what bird call they're hearing. You still see them smiling at dumb jokes in a rom-com that nobody should like. They're still the person that you love. But now they have a brain tumor. And sometimes they don't act like the person you love. And they do something that they would never do if it was up to them. They're at the grocery store. Somebody cuts in front of them in line. They start yelling. They get aggressive. They push the person. They don't punch them and stab them and rip their throat. They just push them. That's assault. You go to prison for that for years. So, does this person that you know and love deserve the same punishment as all those people that you were talking down about just a little bit ago? Well, no, she's got a brain disease. She's got a tumor in her head that makes her do crazy stuff. Okay, so where are you drawing the line? There has to be a physical indicator of the disease for someone to get some sort of a get out of jail free card? Is that the line that we're drawing? So what if the problem is viral? You can only see it under a microscope. And it's not going to be up to you whether or not they get this get out of jail free card or not anyways. You either choose to live in 2021 with the rest of us and believe that there are diseases that affect someone's behavior, or you choose to live pre-science and think that there's good and evil and witches and like what? There are so many people in prison whose parents had big dreams for, who went to PTA meetings and bragged about their kid and said the same things that you'll say about your children, that they're good people, that they're smart, that they care, that they work hard. All of that. The whole time I was in prison, I met maybe 3 people that were there because they liked to do bad things. They liked to hurt people. And even then, I think it's a illness. If your brain is not functioning correctly, it's dysfunctional, you have at least a huge psychological hang-up, even if we can't point a finger at it and diagnose it, I don't want to get too specific because there's some upsetting things that we could talk about, and I don't know that it helps the argument at all. But if somebody was hurt horrendously as a child, all the worst ways, and later in life hurts people, that becomes their responsibility fully at the age of 18. At 17 and 364 days, they have 24 hours left to address an entire childhood worth of problems, trauma, physical, mental, sexual abuse. And after that 24 hours is over, they are subject to extreme prison sentences. So many people. So what if your kid went to jail? What if your significant other went to prison? Because if you are hoping that they would be extended some type of leniency, I mean, would you, would you hire them a defense attorney? Or would you say, nope, they did it, so punish them, hurt them, get them, teach them? Or would you try to get their case to at least lean somewhat more in their favor than it is? I mean, if you want that, if you would want that, if you can open your mind just enough to imagine, and hopefully it never happens, but imagine a situation where someone you care deeply about ends up incarcerated, and you think that you would want some kindness extended to them. I'm not crying. That was a weird voice crack. Don't make fun of me. Some kindness extended to them. You have to try to do the same thing for the people that are already in there. And you know what? If you want to make a club with me where we hate the 3 evil people that I met, fine, because I haven't totally figured out how to think about that either. You know, I believe that child molesters probably have something very wrong with them, okay? But let's talk about the murderer that brags about it. Okay, he didn't just do it and regret it. He brags about it. Yeah, let's make a club and hate him. Oh, that sounded sarcastic. I mean it. Let's make a club and hate him, because I don't know how to feel. I'm not smart enough, I guess. I haven't figured it out how to feel about that. But for the other, how many people, hundreds and hundreds of thousands, let's try not to justify their crimes, but to try to understand why the crimes happened and not just write them off as evil, you know, morally aberrant to what is a societal norm. I did some bad stuff. I did some really bad stuff when I was in active addiction or when I was on my way to a relapse. And I spent every minute of every hour of every day of every week of every month after those events doing my best to blot out the existence of the shame I felt. Now, I'm in a wonderful position right now. I'm very lucky, very blessed, whatever you want to call it, to be in a better place now, and I don't have to do that anymore. I mean, it still comes, some stuff comes up. I made a video about it like a month ago, some messes I still have to clean up. But everybody's that way. Almost literally everyone that does bad stuff knows and hates themselves for it. And if they don't, they're either deranged, sick, or they were brought up to have no conscience. They weren't taught right and wrong. And I'm not here to argue whether right and wrong is inherent and we're born with it or what. I'm just saying, you see when somebody's raised a certain way, they become this way. And if you're raised this way, they become this way. And you can't perfectly, puppeteer your child into an outcome that you want. But yeah, the concepts that you try to instill in them typically get instilled. And the people that don't care, no compassion was instilled in them. But those people are so few and far between. So can we deal with the massive majority first? And then you and I can sit down to some coffee and figure out what to do with the 20, 30, 40 people left in the country incarcerated because they are truly evil. And what if your kid was behind bars? The way that you would feel about that is probably the same as the way my mom felt when I was behind bars. The way that the parents of all the other people in there feel. And if you would say, yeah, punish them, teach my kid. I'm not going to bail them out, punish them, hurt them, let them get beaten by the inmates and the guards. Who cares? They got to learn somehow. Well, then your kid was already probably a lost cause, because it sounds like you are a real piece of shit. Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful day. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.